Yeah, there's always one. Greetings and welcome to this video where I will be touching on the not so pleasant subject of mouse utopia and applying it to the Star Wars universe. There's no way in hell I will be applying it to our universe because it is all too real, and if you looked through the experiment, there are some rather nasty parallels to our society, and it could be a terrible omen of things to come. Now, when I'm doing these videos on what if Palpatine was benevolent, what would happen, I'm usually going to take the negative spin, but I'm quite happy to see in comments, and hopefully when I have a few live streams soon, to hear the positives, how it could work. Now, in this video, I will just be taking a rather simplistic approach to it, because the mouse utopia experiments themselves, or in the one I will be referring to, is called Universe 25. Later experiments mitigated some of these events. They didn't wipe them out, but there is much more hope for us and even for this universe than what I will be discussing. I will be taking one scenario where everything just works. As ridiculous as the Life of Brian clip, we are all individuals, it happens. And I will go through the 4 stages: strive, exploit, equilibrium, and the dying, that the real mouse utopia went through. And I'll apply a little bit of what could happen in the Star Wars universe. The first period, strive. This is when the mice were introduced to their utopia. All predators had been removed. Disease had been pretty much eradicated because the mice who entered mouse utopia were picked from healthy stock and they had no communicable diseases. In the first 100 days, they established territories, made nests, and explored their universe and set out the boundaries. In the real Star Wars universe, in this period, Palpatine they'd set out the rules for society. Here's how it works. Everyone will be exactly the same grey uniform, the same whatever. But you will want for nothing. Your medical needs, your housing, food, water, entertainment, all provided for. That led to period 2 in mouse utopia from day 101 to day 315, called the exploit period, where every 55 to 60 days the population doubled. But this is where the seeds for destruction were sown, because even though every part of the habitat had equal accommodations, equal access to food, water, entertainment, mice started to congregate in certain areas. And the same would happen in the Star Wars universe. Even though, we'll say, some of the outer regions would have as much resources because Palpatine uses the Imperial fleet to equally distribute everything equally all over the Empire. Many are attracted to the brighter lights, which had attracted people in the past, assuming that if it's this good out here, it must be better in there. And this is where the seeds are sown for the next period, called the equilibrium. This is where the population leveled out. as many died as were born for about 300 days or so. But because there was less social mobility, many of the young male mice were kicked out because the female mice congregated around the alpha males. In his sections, or in their sections, there was many different groupings. So the young male mice became gangs. They set off, they were fighting among themselves, looking for purpose, which, because everything was provided, they had none. There was no predators to avoid. They just had themselves to focus their frustration on, and they began to pick on members of that community. Some of those mice were pretty much gnawed up, and other mice that the researcher John B. Calhoun called the beautiful ones. These set themselves apart from all the other mice, spent their time grooming, eating, sleeping, refusing to engage in anything. No sex, no violence. They just spent their time preening. I'm going to make no comment on our own society. But in the Star Wars universe, this happens. Some creatures set themselves apart, spend the time working out, looking good, and going to salons and eating in only the finest restaurants, of course. They may have looked good, they may have looked inquisitive, but like the mice in Mouse Utopia, they were dumb, completely stupid and incapable of dealing with any unusual stimuli. Now, should anything happen to the Star Wars universe, and like I said, I don't know much about it, but what if during this period the Yuzang Vong invaded? Would the beautiful ones, as Calhoun called them, be able to deal or cope? They weren't in Mouse Utopia. Any external stimuli freaked them out. So name calling freaked them out. No comment on what's happening with certain members in our society. Not mentioning it. Hinting at, not mentioning. So you can see that a society that is decadent and has everything handed to them would be unprepared for anything to happen. So this epoch leads to the final period, the dying. Because within the equilibrium period, violence started becoming more prevalent with those mice gangs ganging up on others. The mice became more and more disengaged as they didn't have to worry about anything and just focused on themselves. The larger numbers led to more stress and led to more mental issues, because even mice removed from this setting and placed in other groups were incapable of socializing. So this led to period 4, the dying, when society breaks down. In the Star Wars universe, it just gives up. In a Mouse Utopia, even with abundant food, mice resorted to cannibalism. The mother mice refused to care for their young. 96% mortality became the norm. And eventually, no more mice were born, and society just died as all the mice became completely disengaged, descended into violence, and society completely collapsed. And a similar fate could happen in Palpatine's perfect utopia. because there's nothing to keep people engaged when everything is handed. You become dumber. That's how you get reality TV. I said I wouldn't mention our society, but it's implied. Now, this is just raising some issues because I do want to have this talk where it's not with others, where it's not just me talking, where we can get at the meaty issues. And as you can see from my hints, why I don't want to dwell on our society. We'll just keep it fixed in the Star Wars universe where we can have that talk. We can make up names of people within this universe and say, well, I think this would happen, or that would happen. Or in that universe, because there's so many planets, people could move about, there's still abundant resources. There's plenty of people in the core who would want a quieter life and who would move out. There's no restriction on travel, which in the Mouse Utopia there was. While it was a large enclosure capable of housing 3,000 mice, it was still a relatively small area. And if those mice had been able to expand into other territories, the catastrophic failure may not have happened. And again, this is why I don't want to talk about our society. Someone else used that excuse to do some terrible things a few decades ago. And that is another discussion I'll have in the Star Wars universe or in any fictional universe but the real one, because that causes real problems. But the implication when you discuss in the fictional, you can deal with the real. And that was one of the purposes of starting this channel. Thank you for sticking true to the end. I hope I didn't confuse you as much as I confused myself. I will be releasing another video soon. Please keep an eye out for that. Please like, comment, subscribe, because I would like this channel to grow. And may you all get to heaven a half hour before the devil knows you're dead. Take care, friends.